Hi, my name's Ian Burrell, the Global Ambassador for Rum, and welcome to Imbibe Live Online, part of Global Bar Week. So for the next 25 odd minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you some bartenders' myths about rum. These are some of the things I've heard around the world from various different bartenders about rum when they've said, Ian, I've heard this about rum. And I'm like, I don't know where you heard that from. And most of the time, it's actually from some dodgy brand ambassador. That's obviously just getting the information from their marketers as such. So I don't really blame them too much. The marketing guys, you guys, yeah, I'm blaming you. I'm blaming you. So let's get on with some of these myths that you may have heard, and some of these you may have heard before, some of them you may not have heard before. But right, let's sort out this presentation. So, as we said, bartenders' myths about rum. Let's talk about some of these myths that I hear around the world when I'm hearing some of my fellow bartenders talk about my favorite tipple, which, as you know, is rum. So, just in case you do want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. I'm pretty much around. You can pretty much get me quite easy. But anyway, let's start off. So all rums are sweet because they're made from sugarcane. Well, some rums are sweet and some rums are sweetened. Yes, all rums are happily made from a byproduct of sugarcane, whether it be molasses, fresh sugarcane juice, or syrups. But that sweetness is not passed through distillation. That's added post-distillation after. So in some countries, it's actually against the law to add sugar to your product, and other countries you're allowed to add sugar or other sweeteners to make your rums. Bearing in mind that in Europe, as of this year and next year, they'll be enforcing it, that any rums that have 20 grams of sugar per litre or higher inside, they won't be allowed to be called themselves rum. They'll be called a rum liqueur. So look at your labels very carefully when you're drinking and buying your rums, if you want your rums unsweetened or if you want your rums sweetened. Number two, the second myth that I always hear is rums are simply just white, gold, and dark. No, it's not true. They're not just white, gold, and dark. They're made in many, many different ways from different types of raw materials using different types of yeast. Some are unaged, some are aged. They use different types of barrels, some are colored with caramel, some are bottled at various different strengths. Just to call a white rum white is pretty much doing a disservice, because it might be a white rum from Puerto Rico, it might be a white rum from Jamaica, it might be a white rum from Cuba, and they're all made differently, will taste differently. The only thing they'll have in common is how they look. So just to call them white, gold, and dark is a little bit of a disservice, and it's a bit more complex than that. Number three, the color of a rum determines the age. Well, if the rum is dark, it doesn't mean it's old. And if the rum is light, it doesn't mean it's young. There are many, many different ways that rums can be aged or colored. And there are different degrees of, different types of barrels will give different types of colors. Newer barrels give a lot more color than, say, some of the older barrels. Larger barrels, obviously, are going to give a lot less color than smaller barrels. Also, the other thing is you're allowed to add spirit caramel to some rums. Some people say this is an innocent additive, and others say it's guilty deception. Because imagine you've got a rum that is like 62% alcohol by volume, comes straight out of your cask, but you want to sell it at 40%. So you water it down and then you add a bit of caramel, only a touch, just a touch of caramel, just to get it back to the same color as it was when it was inside the barrel. And that is consistent for a lot of rums and whiskeys as well. Some companies, though, will add very, very young rums and then add a lot of caramel or darker caramel, just to make it look darker. Some of that is just for marketing. Some of that they want to make it look older. So yes, don't judge a rum by its color. Find out some more information about it as well. Number four, the rum on the bottle is a spelling mistake, especially when it's got an H inside there, or Rhum, as my French colleagues would say. No, when you see Rhum, R-H-U-M on the bottle, 99.9% of the times it is from a country where the principal language is French. Places like Martinique and Guadeloupe. You go to Mauritius, you go to Reunion, they will have the spelling in that particular way. So it's just the French spelling of making rum. But don't be confused with rums with RHUM and the word agricole or agricultural rums. An agricole rum should legally come from the French colonies, from Guadeloupe, Martinique, Reunion, also from Madeira. as well, although they won't spell it R-U-H-M, but they are agricole rums as well, Madeira being parts of Portugal. So R-H-U-M is normally rums from a French-speaking country. The same as when you see the word ron. This is number 5. I always thought Ron was the name of the person that made the rum. So I used to see like Rum Bacardi. I was like, oh yeah, Ron Bacardi, like Ronald McDonald or Ronald Reagan. No, Ron is the Spanish way of saying rum. So if you see the word Ron on the bottle, it's probably from a country where they speak Spanish, and Spanish is the principal language of that country. One of the old, maybe former countries that Spain colonized, like Puerto Rico, like Cuba, Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Panama. So you normally see that. And rums had many, many names over the years: Kill Devil, Aguardiente, Rambullion, Gayle, Tafia, Clarin, Brevet. It's so many different words to call cane spirits. Some of them were rums, and some of them are just local spirits that are seen like rums. So yeah, so anytime you see R-O-N on the bottle, it's probably from an ex-Spanish colony, like you see here, Bacardi from Puerto Rico and Havana Club from Cuba. The sixth myth is a number on the bottle is the age of the rum. Ooh, big controversy when it comes to rums as such, because when you see this number on a bottle as a general consumer, you normally assume that that is the youngest product inside the blend, just the same way as you'd expect that from, say, a whiskey from Scotland. You see a 12 on a whiskey of Scotland, you think it's 12 years old. It's been in a barrel for 12 years. But in the rum industry, depending on which country you're in, they have different laws. And this is, again, another reason why we should be looking at rums from where they're made and the countries they're made. Some use aging techniques or aging labels and use the word Solera on their label, where they're blending young rums and old rums and actually putting the age claim of the oldest rum in their blend. So they're using old rum to educate younger rums. Now it's an interesting and it's a great technique of creating consistent products. Marketing wise, some people might say it's a little bit deceiving because you're trying to make people believe that your product is older than what it actually is. Here you see a Solera system. The barrels on the top would be called the criaderas, and all the way down to the bottom, and the barrels right at the bottom would be the Solera barrels, and that would be the barrels you'd actually serve your rums from. The criaderas are each level, number 1 at the top, number 2 underneath, 3, 4, and then the Solera barrels at the 5. And what you do is add younger rums to the rums at the top, and every couple of years you decanter from the barrel to the barrels underneath. And what you're doing is you're blending that new rum with some older rums that have been there for a couple more years until it gets to the bottom, and then you sell that rum at the bottom, and you call it Solera age claim as such. But again, that's okay in some countries, it's illegal in other countries. If you go to Central America, you'll also see a lot of rums being labeled by their average age or a style. So in Panama, they use average aging. So the Abuelo 12 is an average age of 12. And then Nicaragua, you got the 18, which would be a rum that has an 18-year-old profile, but not the youngest rum inside the blend is 18. So again, it depends on the country where you're buying and then buying the rum from. For example, look at all these rums here. They all have the number 12 on the label, but all different, all completely different, depending on where they're made. So Jamaica, with the Appleton, the youngest rum in the blend is 12 years old. It's been in the cask for a minimum of 12 years, the same as rums from Barbados. As you see with the Dorley's 12. In Guatemala, they do a Solera blending. So this may be a blend of rums from, say, 6 to 12 years old through that Solera system. The Zaya rum, that's a little bit controversial because that's not even 12 years old. That's just a blend of 12 different rums. So they wanted to put the 12 on there just to make you think it's 12 years old. Bit of deception, marketing. Nicaragua, there's the average aging, so it's an average age of about 12. And then Colombia, with the Dictador, it's a Solera blend. So although it says age 12 years, it is actually age up to 12 or up to 12 years old. But again, perfectly legal in Colombia. So when you look at age claims, if you're looking at a product that you want to have minimum age, you then have to look at certain territories. If you look at places like Martinique and Guadeloupe, if you look at, say, Guyana, Jamaica, Barbados, Cuba, the age claims in the bottles will be the youngest product on the blend. So very important to look out for that when you're looking to buy your rums because of age. Number 7, the 7th myth that I always hear is white rums are tasteless and cheap. and taste the same. Not true, not true. Yes, you can get a lot of cheaper white rums that taste very cheap, but there are so many different styles of white rums out there. And when I'm talking about white rums, it could be raw rums that have been aged, or they could be blends that have been aged. They can be aged and then filtered through charcoal. This will give different types of flavor profiles for the various different types of white rums. And that's the reason why you have Jamaican white rums, enough said, that are just like full of flavor, overproofed. When I say overproof, over 57.1% ABV, so normally about 63, because that's how we like it in Jamaica. So yes, you'd never ever say that this white rum is tasteless, and if you haven't tasted one, go out and buy a bottle now and try it. If you do know who Uncle Ray is, then you know what I mean. Enough said. But as I said, some white rums, when they come off the still, because all white rums that come off the still are water white, they're put into barrels, they get a beautiful color, as you see there, coming out of the barrels, and then they'll be filtered through charcoal. And then you filter it through charcoal to take some of the color out, just so you can sell it as a white or a light rum. And so as you see, all these rums here have all been aged, but they're all light. The Don Q Cristal and Bacardi are from Puerto Rico. Now in that country, in Puerto Rico, the minimum age, the requirement to be called rum in that country is that you have to be aged for a minimum of 1 year. So these rums got a little bit of color after 1 year, and then were filtered through charcoal so they could sell it as a light or a white rum. So they've been aged for a minimum of years. The Rum McCoy from Barbados has been aged for a minimum of 3 years. Again, filtered slightly through charcoal just to take the color out, but some of the new ones actually have less filtration and a little bit straw color, but still sold as a light rum. The Diplomatico Planes is a blend of rums from 2 to 6 years. In Venezuela, the rules are all rums have to be aged for a minimum of 2 years. So this has been filtered through charcoal. And then we have the Banks 5, which is a blend of 5 rums. Well, technically 4 rums and a cane spirit from Indonesia. So that's blended together, put inside the bottle, sold as a light or white rum. But again, it's been aged. So a lot of flavor coming out of that particular white rum distillate. The 8th myth is rum should only be drunk with Coke or fruit juice. No, there's nothing wrong. Well, nothing wrong with drinking rum with Coke, fruit juice. I love a rum and Coke, especially in a nice hot day, tall glass. Absolutely amazing. But yes, but rums can be drunk in so many different ways. Some people say to me, oh, is that a sipping rum? I'm saying, no, that's not a sipping rum. That's a drinking rum. You drink it in the way you want to drink it. But yes, the premium rum sector is a fast growing category. And of course, people want to be seen to be sipping a spirit, because for me that was always seen as me being an adult. I could drink my rums or my spirits neat, but why? It's because it's been aged in a wooden cask, and the tropical climate's given it flavor and a nice beautiful aroma. Complex flavors and aromas make these rums absolutely sippable or drinkable. They work well, of course, in classic old fashions and Manhattans and all those cocktails that would normally be associated with whiskeys. You can do that with these rums as well. But why not just have it just neat or with a couple coups of ice? That's the reason why the rum category is, especially the premium rum categories, is growing so well. But some of my favorite cocktails I like to drink rums in are the daiquiri. That for me is the quintessentially the king of cocktails, well, king of rum cocktails. Rum, lime, and sugar, the rum trinity, and then pimp it up. Do a Burrell Daiquiri, named after some dude named Ian Burrell. So yeah, just put a bit of agave inside in there, agave nectar inside there, a couple dashes of orange bitters, and then a lightly aged rum really works well because it's nice, refresh. Don't double strain my Burrell Daiquiri. Just I like bits of lime inside there, just to give it that little bit of dilution, and then a twist of orange oils just on the top, just to help with that aroma as well. And then you can pimp it up again. Gayle Seale Daiquiri, if you want to go the Barbadian style, the Bajan style, using a good 4-square rum, Dawley's rum, using some J.D. Taylor, Velvet Falernum. None of that homemade Falernum business you guys like to make in the bar, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with making your own Falernum. Just don't call it Falernum, because Falernum is a Barbados product. Controversial, I know. Yeah, 2-part sugar and 3 dashes of Angostura. Just shake it up and make it there. So yeah, you can have the rum inside, have it in a Mai Tai, another classic cocktail created by Trader Vic in 1944, the Pina ReFashioned, which is like a pina colada, an old fashioned. Again, another way of drinking these premium rums. And then you have the another cocktail, another rum cocktail that's always associated with the tropics, and that's the rum punch. Yes, 1 of sour, 2 of sweet, 3 of strong, 4 of weak, 5 of spice to make it nice. Yes, the rum punch is definitely one of my favorite drinks. It's one of those drinks that they always say, especially in the Caribbean, that your rum punch is the best rum punch inside the world. Rum and chocolates. It's really nice to pair your rum with chocolates. Or why not? Hey, it's a delicacy. It's one of those ways that people really enjoy the taste of those natural cocoa notes and natural spiciness, those natural sweetness. You just pair it off with a really beautiful tasting chocolate. So a great way to really enjoy your premium rums. And rum and cigars, if you're the type of person that likes to smoke a cigar, why not have it with a rum instead of having it with whiskey or brandy? Because as they always say, if it grows together, it goes together. And as rums are some of the best rums in the world are made in the same places where cigar and tobacco leaves are grown and made, then hey, why not pair those together? So the ninth myth that I hear around the world is a good rum should taste like a whiskey or brandy. No, a good rum should taste like rum. The flavor notes derived from what's called from oak casks are going to be similar regardless of what spirit it's going to be, whether it's going to be rum or bourbon or scotch or cognac, because that liquid is expanding into the pores of the wood, whether it be American oak or French oak, whether it be ex-cognac cask or ex-bourbon cask. It's taking all those natural woody notes and spices and flavors from the wood and contracting when the liquid gets cooler, and then and basically adding to the flavor profile of the spirit. So there are going to be some similar types of notes you get from rum, bourbon, and scotch and cognac. So I can understand when some people say, oh, it tastes like a whiskey or it tastes like a brandy, but I would never ever say a good rum should have to taste like a whiskey or brandy. I actually like to say that a whiskey should taste like a good rum. But anyway, that's just me. So yes, the rum's going to manifest flavors that are also unique to sugarcane distillates, which will make it smell and taste slightly different from whiskeys or brandies that may be aged in the same barrel. So again, it's similarities, but not exactly the same. One thing to bear in mind: if your rum tastes like a vodka, then is it still rum? But anyway, that's controversial. But yeah, just highlighting a little bit more about why a lot of people would say that, oh, their rum tastes like a whiskey or their rum tastes like a brandy. Again, a lot of it's going to start to manifest itself with these casks, with these amazing barrels. And of course, the angel share. The angel share is the evaporation of liquid through the pores of the barrel as it ages. They say that the angels are taking their share of spirit, which is like a tax if you want quality age product. In Jamaica, we actually call it the duppy share. The duppies are ghosts or bad angels, and they actually take a larger portion of rum than the angels do in Scotland. I mean, here's an example of this. So if a warehouse is located somewhere in say like the north of Scotland, where it's a little bit more humid and cool, then the evaporation rate is about 2 to 3% every year. And because of that fact, it means that you're probably gonna make a little bit more money on the whiskey, because not so much of it is going up to the angels and evaporating. That's if you're doing extensive aging with your whiskey. Now, if you're in Kentucky, which is a drier climate but still fairly warm, you're losing to 2 to 5% of your whiskey every single year. Again, that's a tax you have to pay to make quality spirit. In cognacs, a little bit less than Kentucky, it'd be 2 to 3%. Every year. When you're in those cool cellars, you've got that haze of the cognac as it's just sitting on top of the roof and sitting on top of the barrels and slowly but surely aging that cognac and developing those flavor profiles that a lot of people love. But in the Caribbean, because of the intense heat, you're losing 6 to 10% of your rum through evaporation. So a lot of people would say, well, that's a bit too much, and that's one of the reasons why you don't see too many extensively aged rums. But what you do with some companies, they will actually consolidate barrels. So you might have start off with, let's say, for example, 10 barrels of rum. You've aged it for 5 years. You've lost maybe 6 to 8% of those rums, and then you just top up those barrels with the same age to consolidate them. So the 10 barrels might become 9, but you now have a 5-year-old rum that is now developing. You might even put them into older barrels to slow down the evaporation rate. So again, rums will have similar characteristics to really good aged whiskies, but a rum shouldn't have to taste like a whiskey. It should taste like a good rum. And the final myth that I always hear, which makes me laugh, but again is very important to address, is that rum has no rules. Rum has no global rules and regulations. It should be like whiskey. So I always ask people when they say that, I'm like, well, what whiskey are we talking about? Are we talking about Scotch whiskey? Are we talking about Irish whiskey? Are we talking about Japanese whiskey? Are we talking about Kentucky bourbon? Are we talking about Tennessee whiskey? Are we talking about Canadian whiskey? And the reason why I ask that is because there is no global rules for whiskey. So of course, yeah, you're right. There is no global rule for rum, but what there are regional rules. There are rules pertaining to different types of regions, either called appellations or PDOs or DOCs. And if we followed some of those rules or understood some of those rules, again, it could define the style of rum that we have in our bottle before we even drink it. And because whiskey is always seen as that noble spirit, like Scotch, Irish whiskey, even Japanese whiskey. A lot of people will say, oh, that's a single malt whiskey. I know exactly what that means. I know exactly what I'm going to get inside my bottle. But we should be saying the same thing for Jamaica rum. Jamaican rums, there are rules and regulations to making Jamaican rums on the island of Jamaica. There are rules and regulations in Martinique. They have an AOC just the same way as cognac does and Armagnac. Rums of Puerto Rico have rules and regulations to making their rums. I mentioned earlier that you have to be a minimum of 1 year old, 1 year old to be a Puerto Rican rum. Say Cuba, the same thing. They have rules to actually interpret the rules in Cuba, and that's how strict they are when they're making their rums on the island. And Rums of Venezuela, again, they have their DOC, which tells each of the producers what they have to do to classify themselves as a Venezuelan rum. And even Australia has their rules and regulations and their interpretations of what a rum is. Even when it comes to things like minimum aging, to be a rum in Australia, you have to be a minimum of 2 years old. So there are different rules and regulations for different styles of rums out there, just the same way as there are whiskey. So there is no global definition of rum. There is no global definition of spirits, of whiskey, sorry. Probably, I think the only category really doesn't have a definition is vodka. But anyway, we'll say that for another time. So, yes, so what is the best rum in the world? Well, I actually have 3 rums, and that's the one in my glass, the next one, and a free one. So because that's the best rum in the world, whatever you're drinking. So thank you for giving up your time, for checking out this 10 Bartender's Myths. There are quite a few more, but we only had 30 minutes to actually do this little presentation. So enjoy the rest of Imbibe Live online, part of Global Bar Week. My name's Ian Burrell, the Global Ambassador for Rum. If you do need to get hold of me or get contact with me, then just go to my Instagram page, the Rum Ambassador, or my Facebook page, Ian Rum Ambassador, or even Twitter. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, you can easily get hold of me and ask me some questions about rums, whatever your favorite rums are, or what rums you're drinking. So again, thanks again for your time. Stay safe, and I will see you in a bar in the future, hopefully drinking rum.